I didn't say it out loud today. Well, welcome everybody. We're already on lesson 5, and today is a doozy. It is all about forgiveness. I know forgiveness is something that is a really hard subject for a lot of people, and I'm hoping that today's lesson will really shed some light and really shift your perspective on why it's important to forgive and who forgiveness is truly for. So let's get into it. So this is a personal quote from myself, yours truly. I experienced that forgiveness is a key step in healing from the past and freeing yourself from negative emotions that and how they manifest physically in our bodies. So that's something that I'll go a little bit deeper in because I'm going to share um, a personal story of someone that I had to forgive that I really didn't want to forgive. I know it's not easy. It's by no means an easy task, especially when a person has caused us repeated deep pain. They've scarred us in some way, something that can't be reversed, or continues to be hurtful in their actions. But I want you guys to really understand the purpose of forgiveness. The primary reason that you forgive another is to free yourself from the burden that you carry when you hold a grudge. Forgiveness is about your own inner peace, freedom, and happiness. That's why we forgive, okay? So really think about that. It's not about them. Forgiveness has nothing to do with the person you're forgiving and everything to do with you. So it's really searching your heart, and I know it's really tough. It doesn't make it okay, but you have to move on. So when you forgive someone, this is a common misconception. You think that if you forgive that person, that means that you're okay with what they did. It simply means that you've accepted what happened and you're moving on. You're not allowing what they did to take up any more of your energy. Forgiveness releases yourself emotionally from the past so that you no longer feel hatred, anger, and resentment toward the person or situation that hurt you. I know that sounds like fine in D&D in theory, and when you're in the situation, it's really tough. But once you forgive, I need you to understand that you don't suddenly have to like or get along with that person or even allow them to stay in your life. This could be like such as a family member. There's been times in my life where I've had abusive relationships with people in my family, and I've had to put them on hold until I was able to come to a place in a heart posture of being able to talk through what the issues were and either ask them to forgive me or for them to come around and actually ask me to forgive them. So while of course this can be part of the process if you choose, forgiveness has nothing to do with your relationship status with the person you forgave. It's possible to forgive someone and then just never see them again. Forgiving another person doesn't actually require that you verbally tell the other person that you forgave them. You can do this quietly. You can do this with yourself. You don't actually have to verbalize it. So, well, of course, telling others that you forgive them might make it easier for them to heal. And it's a nice thing to do to try to kind of finalize the scenario. And you can forgive yourself for what they did to you. It's not necessary for your own healing. So this is really important to think of it that way. There's been times where someone's offended me, but I didn't feel like it was necessary to reach out to them and have that conflict, that confrontation, and that whole conversation. I just, in my mind, was like, you know what? I'm gonna just choose to love and forgive that person, and I'm just gonna release them so that I don't have to feel this anger or resentment anymore. So here's a fun story. My ex-husband and I separated in 2012. The relationship was really dysfunctional from the get-go. I know that I had a lot of issues. I had low self-esteem. I was seeking for him to fill a lot of emotional voids. And the relationship became very emotionally unstable. And there was things I was holding him back from pursuing his dreams. It became verbally abusive, and near the end, it did get to the point where it was almost physically abusive. So there was a lot of stuff there. Like, I trusted him to take care of me, to trust me. I trusted him to do what was best for us. And there was multiple times that through the duration of the marriage, he didn't step up to the plate and meet the expectations that I'd set for a husband. And they were pretty like low standard things too, like paying a bill on time so that it didn't affect our credit rating, treating me with respect when I'd ask him to do something instead of just being like kind of like a baby about it. Like, there was just a lot of things that just weren't right about the relationship. And when it fell apart, it was myself that chose to leave. And we tried doing counseling, and he just wouldn't take responsibility for any of his actions. And that really hurt me, and it made me, I internalized that. I made it feel like I wasn't worth fighting for in the marriage, and I wanted to work on it. I didn't want to be divorced, but he just couldn't get himself to a position where he could take responsibility for his actions and want to change. So I released him, and I went on to 3 painful years of just not knowing like my worth, really trying to seek out things in places that were not healthy, like partying and drinking, and it was not a good time for me. And then when I know I shared a little bit of my personal story about the 2 special mentors in my life that started to kind of take me by the shoulders and shake me to get me to like snap some sense into me. And I realized I was holding on to so much bitterness and resentment towards him and making myself the victim. And it was a very disempowering time for me. I was making choices that didn't line up with my values, and it was because I was punishing myself for not being able to either stand up for myself. I can't even put my finger on exactly what, how I was feeling at the time, but I remember I'd gotten myself to a place where I was feeling kind of good. Like, I was getting, my self-esteem was back up. Things were going well with my career. I was hanging around with better people. I was going to church, and I signed up for the online dating site, and I had been in contact, and I just made plans to meet my husband Curtis for the very first time. And something in my heart said to me, you need to call Brian, who is my ex-husband. You need to call him and tell him that you forgive him. Like, you need to tell him that there's nothing that, although we can't change what we did, that you're not going to hold him hostage anymore and make him the bad guy and make yourself the victim anymore. Because I knew that if I had done it, I'd seen guys, I started dating, and then I would ruin it. I would self-sabotage the situation because I didn't feel worthy of it, or I thought maybe this person, I would try to make every guy into the ideal person, or I would have this unrealistic expectation of who somebody that I deserved would be. So when I had that conversation with him, and I said, it really stinks that it didn't work out, because I still do love you, and I think I will always love you. And I'm sad that it didn't work out and that we weren't able to figure it out, but I do forgive you. And it meant a lot to him to hear that from me. And it took a lot of practice. Like, I think that I had to say it out loud at least 15 times over the span of like 6 months to get up the courage to, and even to like believe that it was forgiveness, because I really didn't want to. I had to do it over and over and over until I was like, okay, this is the day. This is the day I'm going to do it. And when I asked for the forgiveness and I granted the forgiveness, he was so grateful. And he also, like, he tried to be friends. Like, he sent me a Facebook friend request after that. And I was just like, no, like, I don't want to be in each other's lives anymore. I don't feel like, we didn't have any kids or anything like that, so I didn't feel like it was necessary to maintain that, and he'd already moved on and he was with somebody else. And I was just like, okay, this is wiping the slate clean, setting the tone for this new relationship that I'm hopeful that I'll be able to attract somebody that will be a better match for me. So, the negative feelings when going through that process of like forgiving him, they were carrying over into all my relationships, my lifestyle, my workplace, the interactions that I had on a daily basis. I was really bitter, and it made me ugly. Like, I've always been like a bubbly, like outgoing personality, but I would say snarky remarks and like be sarcastic, and that was just that's not who I am. So even if you're not always feeling angry or resentful, the feelings that are still deep inside of you at a subconscious level can be eating away at you. So this is why it's very important to forgive. And then what about this? Like, what about forgiving yourself? Like, if you can't forgive your past and the people that have hurt you, how can you forgive yourself for mistakes that you've made? Because, like, I hate to break it to you ladies, but there's nobody perfect in this world, right? And we all make mistakes. There's always going to be things like from our past that we maybe regretted. There's always going to be things in the future where we're not going to make the best choices, or we wish that we had more options available to us. So like, other people hurt us all the time, but what about when we hurt ourselves? And I want you to think about this. Is there something that you're holding on to that you need to forgive yourself for? Like the forgiveness exercise that I'm going to go through in the workbook with you, it works the same way for yourself. And I want you to really know that every day is a new day. You can't change the past, but you can create a new future for yourself, free of those things that you did or that you're carrying around the shame from. Like, shame is not a fun feeling. It's something that a lot of women need to work through. And I hope that the exercise in the workbook can really help you to work through the thought process of actually forgiving someone or yourself. So I'm going to show you what it looks like in the workbook. It's going to walk you step by step through a forgiveness exercise that's helped me countless times in my life to forgive myself and others. And I want to just point out at the end here that forgiveness is a choice. It's a very empowering choice to make. It's hard. And just what I said about reframing it, that it's not for you, or not for them, it is for you to cleanse your spirit and your soul from any resentment or bitterness. So this is what the workbook page looks like. So it prompts you to go through it, think of the person who's done something to you that you've had a hard time forgiving or you don't want to forgive. And I want you to put their name in that box. And then I know it might be stirring up old feelings if this is something that you haven't thought about for a while, but I want you to really think about, like, write down what they did to you and how it makes you feel, or how it made you feel. And then, do you feel anger, sadness, hatred, bitterness, or resentment? Do you blame them? Do you hold a grudge? Do you want revenge? Like, revenge is a natural feeling for people to want something. Like, you hurt me, I'm going to hurt you back. Or I want you to explore whether or not you feel like a victim. And like, do the feelings affect your everyday life? Like, do they spill over into your other relationships? Do they affect the ones that you love? And do you have a hard time forgiving people or letting go in situations in general? So I can give an example of how, like, it can affect other people that you love. So my mom has a sister that she's not in relationship with for multiple reasons. And it's really hard for me to consider, like, it's sad because I would love to have like a family reunion, or I would love to be able to have like a milestone birthday party or anniversary party for my parents, but I can't invite those people. So it hurts me when I see that she can't grant forgiveness to her sister. So it's a spillover effect when you can't forgive. Does any of the anger, blame, sadness, resentment, or bitterness or hatred do you any good? Does it make you feel better? Does it help you live a healthy and happy lifestyle to be unforgiving? And does it make you negative and unpleasant to be around? So these are all questions that I want you guys to work through. I know it's hard, but sometimes you need to really process things with these questions in order to make a breakthrough. And then the reason that you have anger, and like, what do you think the anger will actually solve? And do you think that the anger is a replacement for the type of revenge that you wish that you could get back on that person? Is this effective? And can you know for sure that you being angry and not telling them is actually causing them to suffer, right? So I think in our heads we think, oh, if I'm mad at this person, they'll subconsciously know, they can feel the energy. But a lot of the time, most people are walking around thinking about themselves. If a lot of the time, if you don't actually tell them that they've hurt you or offended you, they're oblivious to it, unfortunately. I mean, there's going to be people that they did something pretty bad to you and they'll know. But I think it's definitely freeing when you can get to a position where you don't hold a grudge from against that person anymore. And like, at what point do you forgive those that have hurt you so that you can be free of the emotional baggage that you carry around every day? And like, how can you take steps to forgive this person? And you can choose to tell this person or do it in private or for yourself. And then it goes into like whether or not you need to forgive yourself for anything and what is it. And I really want to encourage you to release yourself from the bondage of unforgiveness. Show yourself some compassion, grace, and love. Stop punishing yourself for something that you can't change. Like I said, you can't go back and change the past, especially with things that you regret, especially if it includes people that you love, but you can work towards creating a better future together. So that's the lesson today, ladies. I hope that it gave you a different perspective on forgiveness. I'm gonna stop the recording and then we'll have a little chat.